Video 100. Ancient Past Lives of Russian President Putin. Explained by the ancient spirit tralaka, here flowing in spirit as I was typing. Now, in Putin's ancient life stream, he had 4 lives on one of the 2 planets that used to be past the orbit of Pluto. Now, Tralaka has talked about this in quite a few of the videos of other world-known leaders that had some life experiences on those used-to-be planets. But anyhow, he spent all 4 lives as a Draco humanoid at 7 feet 9 inches tall. The first life there, he was a fighter pilot in a awaygua 550 squadron. This was a very, very battered over and over again squadron, as their job was to keep the space route between the Draco settlement's planet side and their orbiting long-range cargo ships clear, so the short-range cargo ship coming from the planet side to the orbiting cargo ships would be safe and their cargo in one piece. Strangely though, as the contract between the Draco and those pin-headed beings allowed for safety in reloading the cargo ships. However, like anything else the pin-headed species had ever signed, it only lasted until the meeting was over. So to speak, the ink wasn't even dry yet before they know and didn't follow it no more. For those pin-headed species in their very, very long history have always been one of self-serving, kill anything else that did not serve their purpose or fit into their scheme of how things should be. Now, in this life, Putin, as a fighter pilot, was fighting against endless deceptions and illusionary, really high-tech electronic trickery to try to keep the short-range Draco cargo ships from reaching their orbiting cargo ships. 1 out of 3 ships would make it there without being attacked. And it was a very, very busy ship coming and going. The fighting was never ending. Though understand that part of the cargo, interestingly enough here, part of the cargo going to those long-range ships was not registered, but it was a very high alloy mineral which would be used to make better battle shields for the Draco warriors when they took it back to their home planetary system and made the equipment. In his next life, as a Draco humanoid, he spent a longer than normal life as a master electrician and a communications relay station service technician. Being since the Draco humanoids and the pin-headed beings were at war that was claimed not to be a war. What? This ain't a war. It's a misunderstanding. It's just a misunderstanding. So the outside species of beings from other planetary systems wouldn't come snooping around with big battle fleets. Now, Putin spent most of his life making very hurried made repairs on the equipment he came to repair, between the laser shots coming from both sides to keep things operating. As his life went on in many years, this was to make him a very angry Draco humanoid to work with. A few too many hundreds of so close laser shots, many of which burned lines on his Draco humanoid thick-scaled skin, and even across the top of his head, laser lines were burned where the hair would not grow no more. Now, in his 3rd life as a Draco humanoid, he was a Draco humanoid warrior as part of the Draco underground troops and other sized groups, though in this life and the next, his features would be mud features. Now, this is not because some of this was inside of the planet armament or outside, but this is just part of his heritage here. of the Draco features, with rippling Draco coarse muscles, very powerful and quick, flowing below in his humanoid form skin. His eyes were a cold laser blue. His thick yet flowing scales were a light toned black. Usually he wore his battle eye protectors, which hid his laser blue eyes that would normally be seen in the darkness or in the light. So he usually wore these even when not in battle. Those battle eye protectors, though, had built-in multi-range infrared sensors that could magnify anything he focused at, so he could easily identify and decide if he was going to make yet another sniper shot at those insane pinheaded beings who keep insisting on making war against the Draco humanoids. Now, in his last life on one of those planets that used to be past the orbit of Pluto, he was again a Draco humanoid, though just barely could humanoid features be noticed from a distance. Up close, his very strong Draco dragon features, at 7 feet 9 inches tall when he was sitting, but a full 10 feet tall when he stood, a 5-foot tail that had 2 rows of 6-inch tall scale points that were filed to keep razor sharp at the last 2 feet of his tail. His eyes were large Draco dragon eyes, although a very strange neon burning blue eyes, very strange, that felt like he was looking, his eyes, though similar to other lifetimes. This here was not common for the Draco dragons to have. But his head, though similar in the humanoid in width, was in the front a full 12-inch long jawline that held 2 rows of teeth, the outer row sharpened front to points, and a flat inner row which did most of the chewing. Though he was not a fire-breathing Draco dragon, he, though, when mad, would be seen with clouds of smoke coming from his large nostrils, and his eyes narrowed, piercing through the smoke to eye on his target. In this life, he was one of the 5 personal protectors of the Draco humanoid representators on that planet. On his right Draco arm was 16 tattooed symbols. Each was a kill from what would have been an assassination attempt by a different being against one of their representatives. And he was only in his 5th year in his job career. Truly, he thought, the best of times. Though he pondered much, what if he ran out of room on his right arm for death symbols? Where would it go then? So he thought much on this. Decisions, he thought. Now, in his next 3 lives, took him to the Procyon systems of planets as a Draco humanoid at a full 9 feet tall, though mostly humanoid in looks. Standing at a full 9 feet tall, most of his careers were that of a fighter pilot for the skirmishes between the older variable species of the Procyon reptilian humanoid and the mid-height old greys. Here, speaking of a variable species of greys that averaged in height 4 foot 10 inches to 5 foot 6 inches in height. These greys had a long time in a running dispute for 2 of the moons of Draco Inale, which were very rich in alloys but of toxic environment, which didn't affect the greys at all. It was, however, well within the borderlines long controlled by the Procyon variables of species. The planet itself was an industrial production planet. It supplied a lot of the different planetary systems in the Procyon with high-tech equipment as well as production of specialty space-going ships, from which would then be in a Procyon system of planets doing trades. Putin then next went to the Pleiadian system of planets for his next 6 lifetimes, though standing at only 4 feet 6 1/3 inches tall as a snake humanoid, though this here is not a common height for snake humanoids. There is, however, numerous short snake humanoid variables that are living and still are living to this day between the Draco system and the Pleiadian systems of planets. These particular species are long known for their high concepts of science understandings and application. Now, Putin had in those lives a big reputation for master levels of knowledge, of higher science, which made him go to being. They needed something, they'd go to him. Even others from outside or others of his caliber to aid in their projects, while he kept working in one of the pyramidal sphere dome colleges in the Pleiades and being part-time employed by the Alliance Warriors local base engineering department for designing faster ways to move the crystal energies in their new being made concept fighter crafts, which would be able to keep the inner energy shields around the pilot's cabin safe even after the craft was no longer able to stay in the air or in space and it was in pieces. The warrior pilot would be kept safe and sustained, able to breathe. Strangely though enough, on his next journey took him to the planet Mars of the Earth systems of planets for 2 lifetimes as a Draco humanoid. At 5 foot tall, thick scaled skin and glowing red eyes when he was angry or in battle. When he relaxed his eyes, they turned to a very faded, soft pink, which never seemed to end the mysteries about him in that lifetime. Needless to say, his fellow warriors who manned those 6 sets of twin 300mm laser cannons that kept a close eye on the asteroid belt past the orbit of Mars for any incoming quick attacks by numerous different species who had bases on or within clustered together asteroids within the asteroid belt. Most of the time, the attacks came during large shipments coming to Mars from different places such as Nibiru and specialty shipments of high-tech from the Pleiades and the Draco systems of planets. Although the different species on and in Mars did not always get along that much, they did, however, come to a long-time agreement on how to protect Mars and its citizens. This was a big thing there on Mars, which would later aid in the trading and better understanding between the species. His fellow warriors knew Putin very well. They knew the second his eyes would start to change color to glowing red, they would just have minutes to get to their positions behind the weapons, because he always knew, and they trusted him that he would always know by using his Draco heritage when an attack was coming. He could feel it coming. Even a long distance in space, he could still feel it coming towards where he was. So as always, my friends, expand your understanding of who you are and what you can become as your inner spirit awakens and works with your outer expression to work together. Good night.